tem gente rindo ainda aqui. Eu acho que eu estou num mundo paralelo, porque inicialmente está todo mundo falando aqui que nós estamos vivendo num país democrático, sendo que vocês estão vendo aqui agora um senador censurado há 2 anos. O fato de eu estar aqui agora, eu vou receber uma multa de R$50 mil. Eu mandei agora para todos os senadores no aplicativo do WhatsApp a decisão do Alexandre de Moraes me proibindo de estar aqui. A maior perseguição política da história do Brasil. Impressionante quando a gente fala, as pessoas ainda parecem comentar, conversar, parece que... Eu acho que eu estou sozinho no mundo paralelo, eu e Girão, não é possível. O que está em jogo aqui não é apenas a minha liberdade de expressão, mas a independência do Congresso Nacional. Se um senador hoje pode ser censurado, perseguido, calado, sem qualquer base legal, qualquer outro de vocês aqui, senadores e senadoras, poderão ser o próximo, que eu, como senador da República, estou ainda em censura há 2 anos. O ministro Alexandre de Moraes determinou contra um senador da República uma multa de R$50 mil por cada brasileiro que reportar as minhas falas aqui, dessa tribuna do plenário. Sim, gente, é isso mesmo que vocês estão ouvindo. Sou o único senador da história do Brasil, escutem, eu sou o único senador da história do Brasil que, enquanto exerce seu mandato, está censurado, com redes sociais bloqueadas, salários bloqueados, com multa de R$50 milhões, que eu não tenho nem R$1.000, e a multa de R$50 mil para cada vez que eu estiver aqui nessa tribuna. E tem gente rindo ainda aqui. Isso significa que o único ministro determinou a invasão de um outro poder da República. Parem, pensem da gravidade da democracia, que nós não estamos num país democrático. Está aqui um senador censurado. Parem de falar que nós estamos numa democracia. Que hipocrisia! Eu vou mostrar para vocês todas as violações dos meus direitos feitas pelo ministro Alexandre de Moraes. Pode filmar, pode tirar fotos. Tem mais ali para puxar, quem quiser pode puxar. Cada folha dessa é uma violação ao direito de um parlamentar.
Brazil is no longer a democracy. A senator's plea for help. I am Marcos Duval, a senator of the Federative Republic of Brazil, democratically elected by the people, and my mandate runs until 2026. I am in full exercise of my office, yet since 2023, I have been the target of an intense and brutal political persecution. My only crime: publicly denouncing anti-democratic actions, human rights violations, institutional censorship, and crimes against humanity committed by those who should be protecting the Constitution. For fulfilling my duty to oversee and speak the truth, I have been treated as an enemy of the system, as a political criminal. Today, I come before the free world to make serious denunciations and a call for help. What is happening to me is not just personal retaliation, but a warning that Brazil is rapidly moving toward an authoritarian regime, where the separation of powers no longer exists, and any dissenting voice is brutally silenced. Political persecution and human rights violations. Since 2023, I have been the target of arbitrary investigations conducted by the Federal Police and the Supreme Federal Court, STF, under the direct supervision of Minister Alexandre de Moraes. These investigations have no legal basis or concrete evidence, and are used solely as tools of political persecution and censorship. Article 53 of the Brazilian Constitution, which guarantees my parliamentary immunity, has been ignored. My freedom of speech has been criminalized. My right to represent those who elected me has been annulled by a single minister who concentrates absolute power, with no respect for the law or the balance between governmental branches. The illegal actions against me include total censorship. In addition to the blocking of my digital platforms and social media, I have been banned from speaking inside the Senate itself, a direct attack on democracy and the people's right to representation. Fines for any media outlet that interviews me, TV stations, radio stations, and any other press vehicles are fined $50,000 if they grant me an interview. This means that I have absolutely no communication channels with society, which is why the world is not aware of the dictatorship unfolding in Brazil. Illegal confiscation of assets and salary. My bank accounts have been frozen, my salary has been blocked, and my assets have been seized by the state, without any conviction, violating the presumption of innocence. Article 5, LVII of the Constitution. Disproportionate fines. A fine of up to $50 million has been imposed on me just for exercising my freedom of speech inside the parliament. Illegal retention of my diplomatic and personal passports. The suspension of my diplomatic passport violates the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, preventing me from fulfilling my duties as a member of the Foreign Affairs and National Defense Commission. Illegal seizure of my equipment. The federal police invaded my home and office, seizing computers, cell phones, and other essential devices for my parliamentary work. Violation of the separation of powers. All these measures were imposed without due process and without consultation with the Senate, violating the STF ruling in ADI number 5526-DF, which states that any judicial measure interfering with a parliamentary mandate must be submitted to the Senate for deliberation within 24 hours. A minister acting as a dictator. When I denounce the crimes of Supreme Court Minister Alexandre de Moraes, he positions himself as the victim, the investigator, the accuser, and the judge. A true dictator, who has been doing the same to several parliamentarians, journalists, and citizens who dare to criticize his illegal and criminal actions. Today, there are more than 2,000 politically persecuted individuals in Brazil, and I am the only senator of the Republic among them. Brazil is no longer a democracy, and the world needs to know this. What is unfolding in Brazil is a dictatorship led by a single man, Alexandre de Moraes, who has been arresting, censoring, imposing abusive fines, and spreading fear throughout the country. More than that, my physical integrity is at risk. As part of this persecution, I am under constant threat and face an imminent risk to my life. International recognition of this political persecution. The abuse of power against me is already known to international organizations and foreign parliamentarians. The United States Congress has recognized me as one of the 3 most politically persecuted figures by Alexandre de Moraes. U.S. lawmakers have formally sent letters to Secretary of State Antony Blinken denouncing these violations. The U.S. House Judiciary Committee has filed a formal complaint regarding censorship in Brazil, directly linked to the repression against me and other parliamentarians. House Resolution 9850 in the United States was created in response to Moraes's authoritarian actions, aiming to prevent the U.S. government from collaborating with regimes that promote censorship and human rights violations. International support is urgent. Given these serious human rights violations, I appeal to democratic nations, international organizations, and defenders of freedom. 1. Denounce these violations against me and other politically persecuted individuals in Brazil. 2. Demand that the Brazilian government and the Supreme Court respect international human rights standards and due process. 3. Insist that Brazil comply with international treaties, including the American Convention on Human Rights and the Vienna Convention. 4. Push for this case to be brought before the International Criminal Court so that those responsible for these atrocities are tried and punished. Freedom is at risk. Democracy is being murdered before our eyes. National and international bodies that have received my complaints for the past 2 years, I have tirelessly pressed various national and international organizations, submitting documents, evidence, letters, and official complaints denouncing the abuses I have been suffering. Yet so far, no concrete action has been taken. International organizations, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR. Organization of American States, OAS, United States Congress. International Labor Organization, ILO. Interparliamentary Union, IPU. International Criminal Court, ICC. United Nations Security Council, UNSC. Brazilian institutions, Supreme Federal Court, STF. Senate Ethics Committee, Federal Police Internal Affairs Office, Ministry of Justice and Public Security, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Itamaraty. All these organizations are aware of the political persecution I am facing, yet none have taken concrete action to stop these atrocities. I, Senator Marcos Duval, make this appeal to the free world. Do not let Brazil become a dictatorship